Welcome back to the HP Cult Podcast, where horsepower meets hustle. I'm your host, Joseph Potak, and today's guest is the one and only Josh Mazerolle. Fabricator, entrepreneur, cowboy hat wearer, and all-around madman behind the Deathwish series on Amazon Prime. Josh is the founder of Vague Industries and the brains behind some of the wildest road trip builds out there. From off-road beasts to twin-turbo sketch machines, he lives for the chaos, the craftsmanship, and the adventure. Let's dive into the mind of the man who builds it, breaks it, and drives it anyway. Welcome back to the HP Cult Podcast. My name's Joseph Potak, and today we're with Josh, and you're going to have to say your last name.
Mazerolle.
Mazerolle. Josh Mazerolle. Thanks. I would have butchered that up.
It's practically cheese.
Yeah. I've known you for, like 3, 4, 5 years maybe?
I don't know,
something like that.
Feels like a lifetime.
Yeah, it does feel like a lifetime. But when I met you, I'm like, man, this is my guy. This is my people. We're on the same level. And that's always a good thing when you're in the car world, because sometimes, you have the uppity people that you don't really get.
I think like it's sort of like generally as like a global rule is when you live in alignment with your truest self, your tribe finds you.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, I think that's a good.
It's like putting the bat signal out.
Yeah. So tell me how you got into fabrication or cars or whatever you kind of started with that escalated into what it is today, the beginnings of Josh.
That started early. I come out the womb kicking the clutch. When I was, I think 8 or so, I started learning how to weld. And my first welding project, I built a quarter scale chainsaw powered RC car.
Okay.
And I built it out of electrical conduit because my dad had one of those like hand benders, for wiring houses and stuff. And I found some like skateboard bearings that fit inside, and I, staked it so that the bearings were in there, and I had bearings on my control arms, and I never finished it, but I carried it around for years, and then I pulled it out of the attic one day. I'm 15 years old at this point, and I'm looking at the welds. I'm like, did I forget to turn the gas on? But when I was 9, I helped my dad restore an old Toyota pickup, and we cut the front suspension out, did a solid axle swap. And back then, that wasn't like a thing.
Right.
People didn't do that. If you couldn't buy a kit for it, it didn't happen.
Right.
You're talking early 90s, so that's just when monster trucks were really getting going.
Yeah, and with the early 90s, just to put things in relation, like having 33-inch tall tires was big.
It was, exactly. That was,
And now it's like, if you don't have 40s, you should go home.
I know. Yeah, so I mean, I guess that's where it started. And then bicycles, like I'm still today really into BMX bikes.
Oh yeah.
But back in the day, I'd like ride to the dump and I'd cherry pick through all the stuff. And I built some sweet bikes out of the dump.
Yeah, other people's trash is sometimes our treasure.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. And where was that at?
That was in New Hampshire, southern New Hampshire.
Okay. So is that where you've primarily been?
For the most part. I travel quite a bit. I lived in Kentucky for a minute. I lived in Maryland and Virginia. Right. But most of my life I've been based out of New York.
So the Toyota pickup, was that like a 80s Toyota pickup, like with a 22R engine or something?
Yeah, it was an 85.
Yeah, and those engines are like indestructible.
Everybody says that. They're not. I put a couple of seasons in, and I think that it's they say they're indestructible because they don't have enough power to break themselves. But when you're mean to anything, you can break anything. So
you've broken a 22R or 2 or 3 or 4.
A lot, yeah, a lot of them.
I've done like head gaskets on them, and I can't remember if they have a timing belt or a chain. Chain. Yeah, I think I did tensioners on one, but I never did anything past that. Yeah. So I always just assumed, hey, these things just last forever, other than these 2 things. And I've never really seen any since then. So I don't have any experience since then.
Somehow they built a reputation for being durable, but
maybe it's you.
maybe there's a common denominator here.
Yeah. So what did you do after that? That'd be your first vehicle that you had?
My 9-year-old's restoration project.
Is that the same one?
No.
Oh, okay. So that one, you moved on from that, and then you did.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, that one I built with my dad when I was 9. And then we moved and like he had to sell it. So he sold it. And then a couple years later, now I'm 15. I'm coming of age. I'm going to start driving. And they're like, well, what are you going to get for a vehicle? And that truck came up for sale again. They struck a deal. And then I don't remember if I had to pay for it or they did, or it was a joint effort or whatever it was. But I ended up getting that truck. And the guy who owned it messed it all up and it didn't run really good. And so I was allowed to drive it from its parking place to the garage to work on it and back, which is just across the driveway. I lived on a dead end dirt road, and one day I just didn't feel like going to school. So I told my parents I had the runs and I'm not going. And it's 6:30 in the morning, everybody leaves, and it was springtime. But springtime in New Hampshire is like there's still lots of snow, and it was cold at night, so it was icy. The road was frozen, and I went to drive my truck. But then I went down the road, and then so I live. It's a dead end dirt road, so there's not a bunch of traffic, and I'm banging gears, and I started going by my driveway. I'm probably doing 25, 30 or so, but I'm spinning tires, and I think I'm just the coolest kid on the street, and it gets sideways and it's got manual steering, and like I've never driven. I don't. And so you have to turn the wheel like 8 times to get the lock. And the tire hooked the snowbank and it sucked it in, and then I ended up cartwheeling past the driveway. So like I hadn't even driven this truck yet. It was my first vehicle. I rolled it past the driveway.
Wow.
And there was a giant piece of steel, so it's like a piece of a tractor frame or something in the passenger seat my dad had welded for my grandfather. My grandfather was coming to pick it up. And so now I'm covered in blood, like I'm bleeding all over my face, and the truck's flipped in the ditch. And, obviously I'm freaked out a little bit. So I run up and I find a come along and I strap it to a tree across the road, and I'm going to flip the truck back over by myself. And the neighbor comes driving down the road, and he's like a full of himself, like hero. And he disconnects. He's, "You're not doing that." And he's like, he calls the fire department, and the first responders show up, and the tow truck, and the police, and so now this little dead end 1-lane dirt road has just a barrage of officials down it, and
there's no hiding this.
Nope. My parents had to come home. My grandfather showed up to pick up that piece of the tractor. Disaster.
Did that piece survive?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
it just had some blood on it.
Yeah,
a little bit of
blood. And so they flipped it over, put it. Obviously, I was in. And my parents were like, "Okay, well, you have to fix it, or we're throwing it away." Bit of a punishment. They also didn't. I don't think they thought I was going to fix it, and because I worked at Dunkin' Donuts part time, like I don't have the money. But my cousin had a parts truck, and he was like, "Yeah, you can have it." And it had a really clean extra cab on it. So I had a regular cab short bed. This was an extra cab. And so I took some measurements. I was like, I think I can make it work. I just have to make more body mounts. And so I put an extra cab on it, and I found a bed. I shortened the front of the bed, and I bobbed the back of the bed, and I restored the truck. I put a V8 in it.
You're doing that at like 16?
No, it was 15.
15?
Yeah.
No normal person does that kind of fab work at 15.
Yeah, I don't know. I got a curious mind, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's very interesting, because most 15-year-olds, well, definitely no new 15-year-olds do that kind of stuff in the current world.
Yeah.
But that is definitely next level stuff for somebody that's 15 to actually even know, hey, I can't do this without adding this extra body mount and shortening the bed and to make it work, because it was a short regular cab frame. And then you basically took out the extra length out of the bed.
Yeah, it was like 9 inches or something in the front.
That's probably they should have made that truck. That's probably something kind of cool.
It was cool. It was
grocery
cool.
getter truck. Nice.
Yeah. And, I painted it, and it was spray paint. I didn't know the spray paint was junk, but it looked really nice until the first time it got dusty.
I would spray paint a car today.
Yeah.
I'm cheap enough. I'm like, you know what? Just get like 30 rattle cans. It'll be like a 20-footer, maybe 25-footer, but honestly, I'll do it.
It looked really good. It looked like I did it in a spray booth. It was beautiful. And then the first time it gets dusty, spray paint is...
Yeah.
But it looked really good. Yeah, so that ended up being my senior project in school. The senior project was putting a small block in.
Yeah. The regular run-of-the-mill small block Chevy.
Yep.
Like a 350.
Yep.
What trans did you put in that?
It was a, what was it? A TH350 and an NP205.
Okay, so you actually did kind of a harder swap because it's 4-wheel drive.
Yeah, and I put a
So-
Dana 60 and a 14 bolt in it.
Yeah,
It was
nice.
a cool little truck that I never finished. And then, so now we're, I don't know, 19, 20 years old. And I'm still working on this truck. I drove it once. I finished it enough to like drive it around.
Did you end up getting another beater car or anything in the meantime?
My first daily driver
Yeah.
was an 88 LTD Ford, like the Crown Vic.
Yeah, like a police car looking one.
It was an
the square body ones.
Ex-Boston police car.
Yeah.
Still reflective tape on it. Call 911. It had a built 460 in it, and it ran 12.5 at 114.
That's fast.
So I went to my buddy's place to buy a carburetor for this Toyota pickup. And we walk past this cop car, and he goes, "You want to buy a cop car?" I was like, "No, I don't want to buy a cop car. Bring me to your carburetor." And on the way back, he said, "You want to buy a cop car? Sell it to you cheap." What's cheap?
Yeah.
He goes, "I don't know, $600. What's it need? What's wrong with
Right.
it?" And he goes, "Well, I got it from my grandfather. He passed away." He says, "I think it's got transmission problem." So I fired it up, and it was like, wow.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. He says it runs rough. It has transmission problems.
Yeah.
It runs rough because it's rowdy as hell.
Yeah.
He doesn't know.
Right.
And so I'm like, transmission problems. Put it in gear, and the rear tire's like,
Yeah.
just had a tight converter.
Uh-huh.
I was like, I don't think this is what he thinks it is. And so I paid $600 for this thing. And the story that I gathered later was that his grandfather was like really big into drag race and bought a new car, but he wanted to buy the police car because they're like extra welds, heavy duty, whatever.
Right.
But the motor was tired, so we put one of his spare engines in it, which was like a spare race engine.
Right.
And then the guy died, and his grandson.
And so nobody knew.
Nobody knew. I honestly didn't really know. And so I drove that car into the ground, and I ended up selling it for a couple $100, and it went out west and got put in a demo derby and won like 20 grand on an asphalt demo derby.
Oh, wow.
But I thought all $600 cars were that fast.
Yeah.
And then the next car I got was an automatic Toyota pickup, and I was sadly mistaken.
Yeah. So you got kind of a fluke. You got like a $6,000 car for $600 that had a built engine and who knows what else done to it.
Right.
That's funny. Did you know that it was modified? Like what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I knew that it was. Yeah, I knew it didn't run rough. I knew it ran good. But I didn't know anything about it. I'm 16, 17. Yeah.
So how long did you have that one?
I don't know, 6 months.
6 months. Yeah. So what took you from that point? Like what were you weren't obviously going to have a career at Dunkin' Donuts. What was your plan?
Well, okay, so my plan started when I was in elementary school. When I was in kindergarten, actually. In elementary school, they had like a little journal that followed you around through the grades.
Okay.
And it was like, Josh made a new friend, Christopher. Josh likes to draw. Josh, and at the bottom, it was like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Right. And it was check boxes that was like, fireman, secretary, nurse.
Right.
And I couldn't really write in kindergarten, a little bit. It was a bit of a train wreck. They checked other and wrote in build monster truck at 5 years old. Now, what's interesting about that is it's not drive monster trucks.
Right.
Be a professional baseball player. It's, I want to build the trucks. And around that, when I was building when I was 9, building that Toyota pickup with my dad, I got home from school before he did. And there was some 6-inch skyjacker ring sitting on, and I'm looking them over. I'm like, what are these things? They're kind of alien to me. And my dad gets home and he's all excited. And I'm like, what is it? And he goes, it's suspension. And so then we put it in. I learned how it worked, and it made the truck taller. And I was like, oh, suspension makes monster trucks.
Right.
I was like, then I want to do suspension. And, as I moved into high school, I did machine shop, and I started getting real. I was like, well, I don't think there are jobs to build suspension, but there are definitely jobs to be a machinist. I was like, I'll be a machinist. That seems good. I get to be creative and make things. And
it's kind of a fairly universal trade too.
Yeah.
You could make stuff for any industry.
Exactly. And so that's sort of what started it. Like I was I would race RC cars. And not like, sure, it's just a hobby, but I was very serious with it. And that's where I learned how to tune suspension, or at least started, changing roll center heights and damping.
Yeah, because it's, it's just scaled.
Yeah.
It's just smaller scale
same
versus
thing.
full size.
So I learned a bunch about that. And in that process, I was building my own RC car. Because now I'm in machine shop. So I'm cutting my own gears and building my own gearboxes, my own control arms and chassis. And it was a pretty cool little journey.
Yeah.
I got super serious into it, and they were making rules about me and for me because of me.
Like, this guy over here is machining his own cheating parts.
Yeah. So I was trying to race in the stock class because they had like 27 turn back in the day. All cars were pretty slow back then. But I was trying to race in the stock class, which was...
It's like an outdoor dirt run, or was it indoor, like carpeted?
It was both.
Both. Okay.
But like the one I'm talking about was carpet. And so I wanted to race the stock class, and I ended up, essentially, I built a whole car from scratch. It was like Lexan control arms so they wouldn't break, and carbon fiber chassis, and I built the whole thing. And I was dominating, and they hated it. And they're like, they kept like making new rules so that I couldn't fit. And finally they're like, well, it has to be a manufacturer. Somebody needs to be able to buy these things. You can't just make your own custom. I was like, cool, I'll sell you one.
Yeah. Yeah. Now it's business.
I am the manufacturer. But yeah, they ended up putting me in the modified class with a stock motor. And yeah, I guess, like I said, I come out of the womb kicking the clutch. So I've always been solving problems.
Right. Well, that's pretty cool. And I didn't know that stuff about you. So that's kind of neat stuff to learn. And, it kind of, all of that experience is what you use every day now, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's wild. Huh, that's neat. RC cars. What other stuff did you do kind of early on? What was your hobby after RC cars? Or do you still play with RC cars?
I don't really play with them anymore.
Yeah.
I just don't.
It seems like there's an era where it's really cool and you're into it. And then I don't want to say grow up, because I know people that go back to it. It almost is like a phase, and then you go to it, then you come back. It's a cycle, let's say. I
mean, your values change over time.
And it's probably not a very inexpensive hobby to keep going if you're really into it.
It really isn't. It's pretty easy to put $1,500 into a little toy car that you're going to smash against a wall.
Yeah, and then you have to spend another $1,500 to replace it. Yeah, and that's easy to do because they're fast and they hit stuff and then they blow up.
Yeah. I mean, it's a scaled down race car.
I think that's neat. And I think some people, like, if you look at drivers of like Formula One, they always start kind of like in karting.
Yeah.
They're always like this dominant karting figure. And, nobody knows anything about them other than other karters. Then all of a sudden, that's their path as they go from karting into, driving F1s if they're good at karting, right? Yeah. And so RC cars, I don't know where you go into other than designing suspension stuff, right?
So on that, I was 20 or so, and I started my own shop right in the center of town, and it was an off-road shop.
Okay.
So we did a lot of Jeeps and built a couple of chassis.
So you're 20 and you started your own shop in the middle of town, which is like, I'm 49. I wouldn't start my own shop in the middle of town. Not because I wouldn't want to. It's almost just like, I don't know, maybe I'm not grown up enough to do it.
I can assure you, I was not grown up enough to do it. I just had the balls of willing to fail.
Yeah. Well, I don't think you go into it willing to fail. You say, hey, I'm crazy. I like this stuff. And maybe other people will pay me to do this stuff that I like.
And that's what it was. Like, when I first started, I was not a very good. I'm 20 years old. I haven't been in life yet.
Right.
And very early, I got a handful of jobs. Like, I worked for Timken making bearings, and I worked for a fab shop. And, I jumped laterally a bunch.
Right.
And I moved up, and I got a lot of experience really fast. I went to a fab shop that they made cabinets and all kinds of things. And somehow I positioned myself to get training in literally every department. So I stayed in the welding department for, a couple of months, and I got 80% of what could be learned in there. And then I moved to the shipping and the bodywork and the fabrication and the press brakes and in the machine shop, every department that facility had.
Right.
I had learned, 75, 80% of what could be learned there. And then as a 19-year-old kid, I became project manager and telling these people who have been there for 30 years, they're almost retirement age. I'm telling them what to do, which didn't go over well.
Right.
But like I was talented, and I had a base of knowledge to be making these decisions.
And is New Hampshire like really like industrialized or a lot of factory jobs, or?
I mean, it certainly was turn of the century, but
like when you were growing up, like I know a lot of those jobs when it's hard to move up in a lot of those jobs unless somebody A, retires or B, dies.
Yeah.
And because people just stay at those jobs, like you said, those 30 years. So they probably wanted somebody to, put forth the time, invest the time to be the boss of them, right? Yeah. But if you are excelling a lot faster than the 30-year odd tech or employee, they probably didn't like that at all.
Yeah, they're not there to excel. They're there to get a paycheck.
Right.
That's different. So, I learned all these skills, and then the shop came up for lease, and I was like, sure, why not?
Yeah.
And the type of businessman I was, if I do this, you'll pay me money? Bet. Yeah. It was like business.
Yeah, business. That's all it is. If you think about it.
I mean, really it is. It's that simple, but
I do stuff for you. You give me money.
Yeah. You got a problem? I'll solve it. Give me money. It is that simple, but managing customer expectations and scheduling and just all of it.
What did you call that shop?
That shop was called Dr. Custom Works.
Dr. Custom Works.
No, Dr. Custom Works Off-Road Fabrication.
Okay.
I really put myself in my corner.
Yeah. Dr. Custom Works Off-Road Fabrication. Did you spell the custom with a K?
No, but I spelled work stupid.
Oh.
I learned that lesson. And it was, when I got into the shop, there was like a bunch of hooks on the wall for keys. And it was Donnie Rattay. No, it was Done Right Auto. Okay. But we called it Donnie Rattay. And that's where the doctor came from, DR.
Yeah.
Everything was just a joke.
How long did you do that for?
3 years, 3.5 years, maybe a little more.
That's not bad.
I mean, it was a good run.
I mean, you learn a lot. 3 years when you're 20 is a big percentage of your life. If you think about it. Maybe it was
longer than that. I think it was longer than that.
Really?
But yeah, it was 3, 4, 5 years. And that I was getting burnt out really bad. Because I wasn't managing it well, which was like, it takes a big load on your psyche. And, I did a lot of really cool things. We were in magazines, I hosted big events, and it was fun. But I was not good at managing customer expectations. So I would say, I think it's going to cost about this much, right? And then it took twice as long as I thought it was going to.
Yeah.
And so now the customer, and then like I already kind of somehow emotionally committed to this price. So now because it took twice as long, I'm making half as much, but then it took twice as long. So now the customer's upset that I'm taking forever.
Right.
And so then I feel like I have to discount. And then, so it's like in the end, I was making 25% of what I was supposed to make. And it was just absurd. And I couldn't figure out I was just in the swamp and I couldn't figure it out. And I was getting burnt out, and I was like, I need a regular job.
Yeah.
I need a Camry.
Need a reset.
I got to start. I can't do this.
Yeah.
So I was a couple weeks away from moving to Virginia and just starting over, get a regular job, be a regular person, whatever that means. And then it was a crummy old shop that had an electrical and I didn't have insurance at the time. I was getting ready to leave. I was shutting everything down. I'm done. And I lost everything.
Oh man.
And a bunch of customers.
Oh.
Yeah. It was a mess.
That sounds like it's a horrible day.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was maybe a horrible couple of days. Fire happened when you were ready to shut down and leave with a bunch of customers' cars in your shop.
Yeah.
And I'm going to guess all of those were a total loss.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Some of them didn't exist anymore.
Wow.
It was a fire, man.
An intense fire.
It was the biggest fire I've ever seen in my life. It happened to be everything I've ever worked for and all my friends' stuff.
Wow.
So that was rough. Then the rumor mill spins because it was a couple weeks later. I'm like, what am I doing? I got to go. I got a life in Virginia. I gotta start. So then I leave, but it's like, the local rumors. It's like, he lit it on fire and he left. He took the insurance money. I was like, psych. Guess what? I left with nothing and I got nothing. There's a lot of people that are
There's
pretty
no
upset.
insurance.
Yeah. So it took me a few years to, make it right with everybody.
Yeah. Because you paid those guys back for what they lost.
One of them was fully restored 32 GMC pickup.
Oh, wow.
That's gone.
Yeah.
I replaced that with a...
Are you still paying for these?
No.
Thankfully.
No, I was able... It was a couple of years I was able to bang this out. There was there was a new Duramax in there that I solid axle swapped. There was a bunch of stuff, but the big one was that 32 GMC. I replaced it with a 35 Ford. I did an LS swap. I made it 4-wheel drive, but it was low on 33s. Cool. It looked right.
Yeah.
But that was that was 15 years ago or so.
Yeah.
So an LS swap back then was like still
new. Fairly new. Yeah. If you compare like now how easy it is to do versus then, there was not really
there wasn't Terminator
project management set up or a route to go. You had to really think about doing the LS swap.
Yeah. So, that was a pretty difficult journey, getting back on your feet and stuff. And
that makes you an adult really, really fast, huh?
Or a depressed little child. But, I never really actually got depressed or beat up about it. Like, there was difficult situations, but... I could very easily see somebody, including myself, like slipping into a real bad place with that. You lose everything, and everybo's mad at you, and you have nothing. You have no resources anymore.
Yeah, I'd want to disappear.
And then it looks like I did because I moved to Virginia. It was a wild chapter, and I said I will never own a shop again. And I was like, and if I do, it'll definitely won't be anything like this. And I didn't know what that meant. I just knew whatever I was doing didn't work. And a few years later, I found myself back in New Hampshire. And my buddy bought a building. He was like, hey, I got a place in there. It'd be great for you to start a shop. And I was like, I want to start a shop. And then, so I started a shop.
I don't want to start a shop, but I'm going to start a shop. Well, and I think some people are made to do that. Like, talking to Tom, he seems like he's has that entrepreneur built into him, even though it was kind of fell on his lap. And now he's just kind of like, oh, this is my calling. And I think a lot of people, do that, and they are made for that. They don't want to work for somebody else. And I think at one point I even told you, probably like 2 years ago, you would make a horrible employee.
Oh my God,
because I'm a horrible employee too, so I get it. But I've never started my own place other than kind of like my media stuff and stuff like that. So I never had a real bricks and mortar place of my own because I don't want the overhead.
So I started this new thing, and I did everything a lot different. And I didn't have a lot of the woes that I had the first time around. I have life experience. I helped manage a race engine shop. I did I learned a lot. How do you word that? To draw a parallel and make an analogy, I was hiking a trail that I've hiked 100 times up this mountain. And while I was hiking it, I realized I was like, I've seen this trail 100 times, but this trail has never seen this me. So it's like you never touch the same river twice, kind of thing. So, I started this new business as a new me, and it was going well. And this is sort of where, the identity that you probably started knowing me of started. So this new company, I didn't put myself in a hole and call myself Dr. Custom Works Off-Road Fabrication, Jeeps and Trucks Only. Vague Industries. And we did a bunch of everything, but on this journey, I ended up, long term it didn't work out, but I made my own proprietary prototype production line of coilover shocks. So I designed every single bit of them. The pistons, the valving, the bodies, the seal heads, everything. And I made, there were 2.5 inch piggyback reservoir coilovers. We put them on.
That's a pretty trick.
It's pretty cool.
I wouldn't even know where to start. I mean, I could probably source the aluminum. Maybe make the nuts, the coilover nuts. That's about it.
It was cool. They were gold anodized and nickel plated. They were really cool. They had some quirks, and I could have got through it, but ultimately, I kind of got boned by the manufacturer. I bought $20,000 worth of scrap metal, and I was able to put a couple together, and it just didn't work. And I didn't stick with it long enough to make it.
Yeah, and some of those projects, you have the kind of like the hit or miss, and sometimes when you miss, you're not missing far off the target, right? Yeah. If this is a target, a lot of manufacturing ends up kind of circling that target, and so it's not hard to tweak it back into where it needs to be. It's not like a miss, like a big miss. It's usually just it just needs some extra finesse or whatever that is to make it right. Huh? I didn't know you made the shocks.
Yeah,
I knew you had made other things like the supercharger adapters and stuff like that. So how long did you run Vague Industries?
8 or 9 years.
Oh, that's a pretty long time.
It was a good run. Yeah. And I finally just got to, so where it got for me was it ran its course. It was doing well. I made money. I made enough money that I was able to take half the year off and travel around the country and build wild shit and do adventures with my friends. And it's like, it wasn't a money problem. Money's always part of the equation, but it was, this is kind of like a bold statement, but I have kind of done everything to a degree where I've built fully restored, suicide door, all black Lincolns, and I've built monster truck chassis and, rock crawlers and hot rods, and so I've done everything. And you remember Stomper, right?
Yeah,
Stomper was that Japanese K truck. I did a mid-engine twin turbo LS, 4-wheel drive, 4-wheel steer.
Yeah, that thing was wild. And you had to. What I remember from Stomper is the G-forces. So you had a 5-point harness in it, and because you're in front of the front axle, you're basically slung out like on what are those? Merry-go-rounds. So you're basically almost a tilt-a-whirl, but you're basically strapped to the front of this thing being slung out, and it had to have a remote kill switch, I remember, for the burnouts, in case you blacked out.
Right, because it was 5 Gs.
5 Gs is a ton of Gs.
It knocked the slobber out of my mouth onto the windscreen of my helmet. It blew my hands off the wheel.
Wow.
It bruised my chest with the harnesses, and it took every ounce of force that I had to get my foot off of the gas pedal.
Yeah, because once you hit it, you can't pull back.
You can't pull back, no.
Yeah, because it's kind of counterintuitive.
And it's the rowdiest thing that I've ever driven in my life. Yeah. And I drove it across the country.
I remember that.
But so I've gone mild to wild, and I've built some of the craziest things on the planet. Yeah. And I got to a point where I'm like, anything I build from here forward is just a version of something I've already done. So, so like owning a hot rod shop or a custom car building thing is honestly not a super great business model.
No.
And the people who do it because they love, it's the passion for the industry, for the cool cars, for the novelty. And it's like, if you assume that novelty and passion are proportionate or related, so maybe like a synonym in a way, like the novelty was gone for me.
Yeah.
There was nothing new, so there was nothing to be passionate about. And the passion is what I was sacrificing, so I had a poor business model, which is working on cars. That was the sacrifice.
It is a poor business model to begin with.
So I'm like, the sacrifice I'm making is the poor business model working on cars, but I'm sacrificing it for the novelty and the passion. But when the novelty and passion kind of dies down, the only thing you're left with is a poor business model.
Right.
And I'm like, this is dumb. And not to say it can't be successful, because like I said,
and I've talked to a lot of people, and a lot of times there's usually a side business or a main business that kind of funds the hobby business, which is usually the automotive.
Right.
And without that, and I would say probably 60 to 70% of performance shops had something else, and they're doing this, but there's something else that's really the breadwinner.
Right.
And then this is kind of like an escape for them in a way. And the ratios are probably not exact, but I know there's a lot of them out there, and a lot of them that have, most of them probably have some other source of income.
Most of the real successful ones.
I met you about the time that you had Stomper at like an LS Fest in Texas. Dallas, I think.
Yeah. I think that was the first Texas one.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that you had built the Toyota that you had done cross country with. So what was funny is I don't know how we got to talking, but like we were talking about, like that kindred kind of spirit that brings you together. I was talking about how I wanted to just get on a plane with a bag of money and maybe some tools and show up and buy like some Craigslist or Marketplace bomber.
Yeah, well, let me tell you about my life.
Yeah, I know. And I didn't know anything about you. Yeah. And so I'm telling you about this plan that I'm like, man, this is crazy. Nobody's doing this. And I'm like, I'm like telling you it, and you're gonna give me like a weird, dirty look or something, because you probably meet a lot of people that already know who you are.
Yeah.
But I'm the type of person, like I just started watching Roadkill, like from 15 years ago or wherever it is, and I'm like, man, they took my idea. Yeah. Somehow they went into the future, took my idea, went into the past, made a TV show. Yeah. So as I'm telling you this, and I'm like, man, that guy, he kind of seemed like I said something wrong or something. And, you know, then we ended up like getting on social media or whatever. And then I like saw something about Vague Industry. I'm like, oh, what is this shit? Yeah. I'm like, I'm going to look it up. I'm like, oh crap, it's on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, it was almost like a weird, like insulting parody that you were presenting me.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you were already doing it. And so then I went, because I'm so oblivious to what's going on in the world with TV and stuff, because I don't go home and watch what my life is, right? Like I do this stuff in a day, so I don't go and watch it. Somebody else doing what I do. Yep. So that's why I never watched Roadkill. That's why I never knew you had your Amazon show. And then I was like, man, I need to be a little bit better about like not insulting people somehow. Like I didn't even know. And so anyway, like the next time I met you somewhere else, like PRI or whatever, I'm like, I told you about this. I'm like, man, I feel like an idiot because I didn't know you had this stuff. And I think a lot of the shops you probably dealt with, whether it was sponsoring a build or going to and using their dyno, they probably knew who you were. And I didn't. And I feel stupid for that whole part of that introduction.
But honestly, like I can very much relate, because a lot of my friends are, you know, major influencers or whatever. And like, I don't watch any of their content.
Right.
If you're a real doer, you don't have time to watch.
No. I look at the stuff nowadays. I look at the stuff that interests me, like Garrett's RV thing. Yeah, I thought that was cool. I'm like, you know, I haven't watched all of it, but I'm like, you know, this is something that I would do. Yeah. So I want to see how he does it. Right. And so that was what was interesting. And then I watched Deathwish, which we didn't even talk about yet, really, other than that little thing. How did that come about? How did you decide to do Deathwish?
That was okay. So I have this shop, Vague Industries, and I'm passionate about building off-road cars, rock crawlers, mega trucks, and I'm trying to get work. Right, I'm a new business, trying to drum up work, build a brand, and I recognize that you can't sell somebody anything unless you have their attention. So you have to get their attention first, and then try to sell them something. And what do I want to sell them? I want to sell them my labor at this point. Yeah, and so I'm like, okay, well, whose attention do I want? And then I get into like, well, who owns the market? Who owns those people already? Who already has their attention? And how do I provide them value in exchange for access to their market? So the more I looked, I'm like, oh, there are some companies that have it, and like media companies. I'm like, okay, well, what media companies already own the attention of the market that I'm trying to? And then I call it day trading attention, like day trading stocks. And I'll just do whatever I can to provide them with value in order to gain access to their market so that I can slowly build a brand. Like they're getting value out of it. I'm getting value out of it. Everyone wins. Collaboration, as they're calling it. Yeah. And I sponsored Jake Berkey. Jake Berkey was a top performing rock bouncer. Like like spaghetti cage buggies that bounce up the hills.
Like, King of the Hammers type.
Kind of like
climbs that. Or like the more of the Central Kentucky. Southern rock bouncers. I mean, they're still $200,000 rigs. Right. And then they, fly up the top and do like a 20-foot jump, or they tumble down backwards.
Yep. Those guys. Okay. So Jake Berkey was a top performer back then. And I sponsored him with a set of axle housings, something that had never really been done before. I built these chromoly housings. They had 11 3/4-inch high pinion ring gear. I had 2-to-1 planetary hubs on them. So the torque multiplication was dumb. They're 1550 shafts, if I remember. No, it's that 570.
Do a lot of those guys use planetary hubs? or portal act
None
type
of them.
stuff?
That was the thing.
Yeah.
It was like, well, how do we get the torque multiplication after the shafts?
Yeah.
So we put planet hubs on there.
Right. It makes the axle shafts easier or more durable, right? Because you're putting the torque after the axles.
And these shafts were 1 7/8 inches. Like
they're never going to have a problem.
They were 5-ton U-joints.
Yeah, it's been those long hauls.
So you're back in Texas, right?
Yeah, I'm back in Texas. So those long hauls, it's easier to do one long ass day than 2 long ass days of half the distance.
Yeah, somehow it's still just as long.
I don't know why.
Yep.
So it's like
2 500s is just as much work as 1,000.
Yeah. So actually, I think it's like 2 1,000 is what it feels like. So I'm like, well, if I split it up, I'm still tired at then, so why not just motor through?
Yep.
And so I leave really early, like 4 a.m. from Kentucky. And those first, 4 hours until about 8 is like the most peaceful driving ever.
Those are free hours.
3 hours, yeah. Nobody's really on the road. It's like people that are on the road are like big trucks, and they're just going 60 miles an hour or whatever. Just, but there's no old people. There's no families. There's no bad drivers in Nissan Altimas swerving in between traffic. It's so peaceful. And you make, 300 miles in those 4 hours. And it's like free, like you said, free 300 miles. So it works out really well.
And you still have stuff up here or no?
The only thing I have at my son's house is one of my KLRs. But I'm keeping it there because I want to.
That's the place to have it.
At some point, I want to fly in. Well, the weather's stupid, though. The weather, and I don't know why, but in Kentucky, the weather, it rains on the weekends, and then it's like nice on a Wednesday.
Yeah, I know, because I have weekends off.
Yeah. I'm like, what's going on? Why is it not shitty? Why is it not shitty on the weekdays, but the weekends are shitty? And it just seemed like I rode twice when I lived there. And it was just, and then the times I wanted to ride, there was like a threat of thunderstorms. So what I want to do is ride with my son, kind of up the Appalachians to like Maine. Not really off-road, but like just back roads. And then do the mountains, then do kind of coastline on the way back, and then come across. Because I think that would be probably a 2 or 3 month trip on weekends to do it. And I have enough family in Pennsylvania, so I have family kind of halfway point, I guess, on either direction. And I think I could probably put them in storage in like Maine and fly back if I ever decide to work again. We'll see. We'll see what life hands me.
Yeah.
But I'm like learning that the more time I have off, I don't really want to take a job, which is weird.
Dude.
If I could make it work, which I'm barely skimming by now.
Yeah, but
if I can, I love the freedom.
Yep.
And so I've been wanting to start this for years. I think I told you ideas before that I wanted to do. And the first thing, the easiest one is to basically transpond my books knowledge into digital stuff, like do a video on it. And so I started doing that already. But the podcast is like, I've already been doing it. I just haven't been recording these conversations.
Right.
But the people I meet are so interesting. And without recording it and having somebody else tell their story, like if I tell it, it's not cool.
Right.
But if the guest tells it, it is cool.
Yeah.
We left off. We were talking about
no, keep telling your story. That's good shit.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I could probably use some of that. So anyway, like if I'm telling somebody else's story with my words, it's not the same as them telling their story in their words, even though I may say the same exact word for word thing, because it seems like some people tell their story differently. But a lot of times, some stories, like if I told some crazy story about you flipping over your first truck when you didn't have a driver's license.
Yeah.
It was like, hey, this guy did this.
That's not
like,
the same.
It's not the same as hearing it from a person. But also, did I just make that up?
Yeah,
right?
Totally.
So it's almost like a storytelling in a way. And it lets me talk about some of my stuff, but I don't talk about my stuff a whole lot. It's whoever it's there. I bounce back some relevance and stuff, and it kind of goes both ways, really organically, like a lot more organically than I ever thought. Because my first couple of podcasts, I had a cheat sheet, and if you could go back, or listeners will go back and look at the video, you'll see I went through them, and it was just not 100% natural. Now,
a little rigid.
The guests were also a little bit unnatural too early on. And if I went back and did the podcast with those first guests, it would be a way better podcast. But it's been kind of rewarding to me. because I also need that, that pick me up.
Well, one thing I think that's cool is, I'm going to step over you here for a second.
No, you're good.
2 years ago, I did 12,500 miles in 7 weeks, and I stopped and visited all my friends all around the country, and all of my friends are fucking savages. They're all badass at something.
Yeah.
They're all doers. And I met with all of my friends, and about halfway through, I realized like what was happening was like, I was having these meetings with incredibly brilliant humans, and we were both pouring our mind into a bowl in the middle, mixing it up and coming out with different perspective, more understanding, maybe more knowledge, more opportunity, and better able to handle problems with grace.
Right.
And it's like this melting pot, and we both walk away better for having this intellectual conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, that's similar to what you're saying. You've been doing this, but you didn't turn the camera on.
Right.
And so it's like, well, what value are you getting out of it? And is there any way, just by turning the camera on, that you can distribute that value at scale? So you have these conversations with important, intelligent people. And it's a conversation that somebody would like to sit in on.
Oh, yeah.
Because if that guy's super intelligent, he's super successful. It's like, how does his mind work? And that people want to see how people solve problems.
And there are people that are too busy to kind of tell what they do or mentor other people in what they do. And they never get that opportunity to share their story or what they've learned, because there's, interviewing some people, I pick up business stuff. Interviewing other people, I pick up fab stuff. Interviewing some people, I pick up maybe stuff people shouldn't do. So it's kind of well-rounded, and my network list is stupid. How many people I know?
Well, that's exactly
that my listeners don't have access to, right? I have access to these people, so I'm going to tell their story.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was getting at. It's like, you have to, the average person who just works 9 to 5, where it lives a regular life, with nothing wrong with that, they haven't earned access to the types of people that they would find valuable conversation from. Whereas, somebody like you have worked your whole life to earn access to these people. It's like, a lot of them you're even good friends with. Like, how fortunate. And I think that if you're going to start a podcast, you need to first be somebody of value. Because you need to provide that person with value. And it could just be that you're friends. But like, you earn that friendship.
Yeah, you can't, like, if you want to do a podcast, and let's say I wasn't even in this career field or had these network connections, nobody would even give me the time of day. So, I mean, it does take having that credibility that you bring to the table to gain access to these people. Because everybody I've asked, with the exception of like maybe one person who is hesitant, but I think he would actually say yes, at his time frame. Everybody's been like, yeah, heck yeah, let's do this. So it's been very positive. And like I said, I'm traveling all over the place to begin with. So I get to meet people that I've made friends with, whether it's PRI, LS Fest.
But that speaks to your integrity. It's like your brand integrity is what this whole thing is built on.
Right. And I'm not going to just bring somebody that I don't want somebody to come on and think they're going to sell a bunch of parts or anything by talking to me. I want somebody to just come on because they're a part of this circle of industry, and they all add something to this industry. I would interview CNC machinists, people that draw CAD. There's really no limit to it. Like, I would travel to Australia if I saw somebody good. Of course, I would try to make them pay for it somehow.
I got a guy for you.
Yeah. So I think there's an endless possibility of interviewing people that the average viewer can never gain access to. So I just think I'm in this unique situation. And this is not what I thought I'd do when I was 20. Like, I had no idea. I didn't think I'd be doing this at 40 even. And it was just recently, like probably from 2019 on up. Now, like, I started this channel actually like 4 years ago, but you see me using it now because I always had that drive to do it. And it started with the books, and now it kind of come full circle. Now I'm getting to use the contacts I made at the books or the trade shows to really tell their stories.
And ultimately, you're doing a similar thing to what I was talking about with day trading attention. You're providing somebody with value or access to their market, and like you're just trading values.
Right. So how did
I was in the middle of talking about how
yeah, we were talking about
happened.
so I was kind of curious, how did you end up on the Amazon deal?
Yeah.
Because Amazon's not what most people do and go. Most people just start something and go to YouTube automatically, right? That's like even today. Even today, I think Amazon is definitely some big brain stuff. Because people have to pay to even view it, right? And I think they probably have some guidelines to make it a show. Like it's not just an episode; it's actually a TV production.
There's structure in every episode. Like it's sloppy. Some of it's sloppy by design.
Right.
So I'm day trading attention, providing value to gain access to their market, and I sponsored this guy, and I gave him this crazy set of axles. Chrome Ollie axle housings, a thing that's never really been done before in the industry. And I delivered them to a trade show a bunch of years ago. It was in Louisville, some off-road trade show or something. And they were there, they had a booth, and that's just where I met them. And then after, we went out to the bars hit the strip. And I'm just telling stories. So he is partnered with Matt Myrick, who owns Busted Knuckle Films. And so we're all out together, and I'm telling these stories. Like I live a pretty wild life, whether anyone's watching or not.
Right.
And so I've got stories that are hard to believe.
Yeah.
And he's listening. He goes, "Have you ever thought about, get a show?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, my whole life, everyone's like, you need a TV show." And he says, "Why don't we do a YouTube thing?" It says, and it said I tried, like I took a bunch of courses on like storytelling and film editing, and I took like a 60 lesson course on Premiere Pro, and like I got serious about it. But what I realized was that's hard work.
It is
it's super hard work to be a YouTuber, especially the early stages. It's like because you got to do everything unless you have something else that's funding the startup. So to create the content, to create the subject matter, to be the videographer and the editor, the publisher, and then to maintain, the engagement. It's like, wow, what a job.
Yeah. And to put things in perspective, I told Tom this, my 90-minute episode, which is really minimal, one episode per week, takes me about 2 full days for everything. Like the videoing, not including travel. The videoing, the backing it up, because I always have to back it up before I edit it because I have messed that up in the past. Importing it, getting everything aligned in the right folders, audio, video, any background images, B-roll stuff. It is a pretty big ordeal. And then you have to edit it. Then you have to upload it. Then you have to listen to yourself.
And if you're good
again.
And if you're doing like a higher value production thing, and it's like, and you're good at the editing, it's like you can assume the podcast is a different thing. I'm not super familiar with that, but like you can assume it's going to take you 1 hour per minute of video. So it's like if you got a 30-minute video, that's 30 hours of editing.
Right.
So
that's almost a full week.
Right. Which is why people have full-time editors, right?
Yeah.
So if you're going to try to do the content, do all of it, and I'm supposed to run a business, my thought was I'm building these cool things. I'll just document it.
Right.
Like
1-to-1. Right.
But then with billing inefficiencies and then slowing down even more to capture it on film and get the lighting. And it's like, all of a sudden it's not sustainable. So that's what I'm telling Matt. I'm like, I tried, I studied, like I know quite a bit, but for me, it's currently not sustainable. So I just can't do it. He goes, how about this? Why don't you film it and I'll edit it and we'll partner up. So that's how the show started. And I just started doing these wild adventures.
I think the first one was some lawnmower that did stupid wheelies and tried to kill the kid that you were buying it from.
Yeah, it did like 60 miles an hour in second gear and it had 5 gears.
That's one that I remember.
Yeah, so we started doing that and putting it together and putting it out there. And it's like the first one went viral, and then the next one was pretty good, and then the next one went viral, and then you get to episode 4 and there's like 15 million views. It's like, oh, I have something here. Yeah. And so then I stuck with it, and it was a hook that I got from a previous adventure in life. The show's really about building community and exposing the kindness of strangers. but it's hidden around hot rods and wild adventures.
Yeah.
So you think you're watching a car show at first, but after a while you're like, watching a people show.
And like what I thought was neat, like with the wide body Toyota, every time somebody would work on it or donate time or parts, whatever it is, you had them sign it.
Yeah.
Which I think you're building an archive of history as you're traveling.
So at some point there was not room to sign it anymore.
Oh,
and
wow.
It was wild. It was a cool little art piece, but it wasn't just art. It was each signature was a memorial for a time that I was broke down or restored through the kindness of a stranger.
Right.
And so I had this unwritten rule where if I'm going to take this 1,000 horsepower hot rod and I'm going to drive it from corner to corner of the country, I'm only allowed to take whatever tools I can carry in one hand. The rest I'm forced to rely on the kindness of strangers.
Right.
So the assholes aren't going to stop and help anyway, so you don't have to deal with them.
Right.
And the only people who are going to help are incredible people. So I kind of created this like psychological bait to capture amazing people to show the world that good people still exist.
Right. And it does show. I mean, I saw like people stopping to help you get gas.
Yeah.
I saw people had gaskets on it. On your 6 liter or 5 liter or whatever it was. It was just nonstop.
Parking lot cranking rod swaps 3,000 miles from home with a bunch of strangers.
So when you were doing this, this was happening in your 6 months off of work?
Well, it wasn't like a steady, consistent.
Right. It was just accumulatively. So it was like, maybe 2 weeks here, 4 weeks here, 6 weeks here.
I'd work my ass off and have a little bit of money, and then we'd go do this crazy adventure. I'd come back broke, or it was.
So what's the worst off you've been? Like, do you have any stories where you had $5 and 1,000 miles from home?
Not that.
Not that bad.
But I have coasted into town with a negative bank account on fumes.
Back home. Yeah.
Yeah. There's been a bunch of that.
Yeah, and you're doing this all not really for the TV show, because you probably were going to be doing some of that stuff naturally anyway.
Yeah.
Now you're recording this stuff.
Yeah.
But you had a purpose of doing it too.
Sure. Yeah, and it was like, honestly, I haven't done some Deathwish episodes in a while. Plus, I've taken a couple years off, and I've just sort of laid low. I've been restructuring life. I've been going through a whole bunch, trying to figure out who I want to be.
You moved to Tennessee.
Yeah, now I live in Tennessee.
Yeah.
So last year,
So when I met you in Florida, I said New Hampshire. You were Canada's Mexican.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
So now you're Kentucky's Mexican.
Yeah.
Whatever other states are north.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's PC. Can I say that?
It's 2025. I think you're allowed to say anything you want.
I don't know. It's my channel.
As long as you identify with it.
I identify with it. I mean, I'm somebody's south of the border. I mean, I'm in Texas. I'm as far south as you could go.
Yeah. So that one truck that you're talking about really sort of helped put me on the map, because it was visually engaging. You couldn't take a bad picture of it from any angle. It was just wild. Turbos out the hood, wide body, big spreader. It was
patina on the fenders and stuff.
So that truck really sort of put me on the map. That put me on Netflix, Motor Trend, Discovery, Facebook Watch. We ended up with our own show on Amazon Prime. Literally every major media outlet did multiple features on that.
Yeah.
It was Hoonigan, it was Speed Society, everywhere you looked. And so not just because of the publicity, but because of the stories, which is what made it so engaging and emotionally compelling, it became a vehicle that I could never get rid of.
Right.
But also because of the abuse that it had seen, it was a vehicle that I couldn't really keep either, because it was falling apart. There was there was no floors in it anymore. It was destroyed. I'm smashing it against shipping containers to look cool.
Yeah.
Like, what an idiot. So it sat. Well, the truck's been blown up for a long time.
Really?
It sat for 4 years blown up.
You still have it?
Yeah. So it sat for 4 years blown up. And then 2 years ago, I took, I'm finally like kind of burnt out on business.
Yeah.
Realizing I'm sitting here with a poor business model. So I took the entire year off. And the only thing I did was work on that truck. So I fully restored it. I basically built a new body, new floors, rockers. I built a new cowl, new firewall.
So
put a new roof on it.
Is this the motorhome truck?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't put that together then.
Right.
Okay.
It's a totally different thing now.
The yellow truck with the camper on it. Oh, nice.
So I built a new chassis for it. I built a whole bed from scratch. That was all flat material. And I turned it into a motorhome. The motorhome portion, the home portion isn't done yet. But, I've got a door on the side. I've got hot water tanks, and I've got propane, all the things.
Are you living in it out back right now?
I wish. I wish. I live in a regular house now.
How boring is that?
Yeah, I wish. So when the home portion's done, I'll probably do a big adventure in it. But the goal is I'm trying to turn it into the world's fastest motorhome. Mm-hmm. It's got a aluminum 5.3 in it. I've got a 2-liter blower and a 78 millimeter turbo.
Compound boost.
Yeah, it's cool. It lights like that. So you got 2 positive displacement pumps. Mm-hmm. So the blower and then the piston engine. So when you do the math, that's something like 8.3 liters or something like that. So you got an 8.3 liter trying to spin a 78 millimeter turbo, which is that's a tiny turbo on 8.3. So it's just on always. And the turbo makes the blower more efficient. It's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
It's a neat thing.
Oh man, I wish I had known that was the same truck. I would have been a little bit more prepared. Would have researched a little bit more. But that truck
I also haven't put content out on it yet.
Right. Well, that truck is a big part of your life. I mean, you lived in it for what feels like 3 or 4 years, maybe longer. But even on Deathwish, and I know you probably didn't do this for the show, but you would sometimes even sleep in your truck at a hotel parking lot, which was probably multiple nights.
Oh yeah. The very first trip I took in that truck, it wasn't even my truck. I was trying to drive. So we bought it. It'd been abandoned in the desert for 15 years.
It was in Arizona or somewhere?
Arizona, yeah. Yeah, and the goal was I was just going to drive it in stock form from Arizona to Pennsylvania, drop it off at my buddy's place. Mm-hmm. I had no tools. I had a handful of tools, which is where my roll came from.
Right.
And it took me 3 months and 3 engines to get home. And by the time I got it home, it was sitting on Crown Vic suspension with a turbocharged LS. And I called my buddy. I'm like, this isn't your truck anymore. I'm like,
wow.
Yeah, but I didn't have, I was gone for so long. I'm like, it was 3 months. I'm like, 3 months of hotel rooms. Like, I can't afford that.
Right.
So I was sleeping in the truck, and then I ended up sleeping in a barn and an airplane that was hanging in the tree. And it was, do that out of necessity, right?
Right.
But it earned me experiences and stories that you can't buy.
No. And I think, if you could do this stuff and you're always in a safe spot. You weren't you weren't in a hammock on the edge of a cliff or anything for the story or anything. I mean, maybe.
Well, one time I tied a hammock between a blown up car and a lamppost on the border of Mexico in a Home Depot parking lot.
Okay.
That wasn't super safe.
No, probably not. I mean, border towns aren't safe for anybody.
El Centro is not necessarily the destination spot.
Nice. But yeah, you filmed most of that stuff and a lot
But I was
of it.
doing it before the cameras turned on.
Right,
anyways.
exactly.
So it's that was the whole thing. Is I'm doing this anyways. Turn the camera on.
Turn it on. Hey, you're not going to believe this.
Just like your podcast. You're doing it anyway. Turn the camera on.
Right. I'm already doing it. I'm visiting my friends across the country. Let's just talk and share their story. So that has 2 seasons on Prime, I think. And then
we have another one filmed. We just haven't put it on Prime yet. So,
okay.
So there'll be 3 seasons.
Yeah.
And I've got a handful of episodes that I have filmed. I just still got to produce.
Right. So, the fab stuff that you're doing, you could probably MacGyver just about anything when you're traveling like that. So because of your background and what you've self-taught yourself and figured out, you go to somewhere, and if you have just a shop with some normal tools, you could get back on the road in a day with just about anything. Yeah. And even if you go as far as to blow up the engine or transmission, it's a matter of sourcing one, putting it in, getting back on the road and going. That's pretty neat. And I think that's kind of what I was telling you about at one of the LS Fest when I first met you is I just think that would be so much fun. I want part of this show or my podcast would be taking a budget, let's say $2,000. And that might even be high. I don't know. I just have to set some limit.
Well, it's 2025, so it's not that
might
much.
Be 2,500. I don't know. But just going and buying just something just silly, kind of like the Roadkill show.
Yep.
And making it back home, selling it, and funding the next one.
Right.
Like, I don't even care about making money off the car. Like,
Yeah.
if I make my dollars back and I was provided with this trip that I documented, and maybe there's no drama. Maybe it makes it home with no problems and it's just a waste of a trip.
Yeah, you bought the wrong car.
Yeah, I bought the wrong car. So I lower the threshold of the budget a little bit more. I don't want to do the roadkill to their extent. And of course, it can't be called roadkill because somebody owns that name.
You can't call it Deathwish either.
No, I can't call it Deathwish. I'm going to have to call it Joe's Stupid Trips or something like that. Just something dumb. Yeah. And I mean, I'll just take the camera. It sounds like if you just have it recording, something will happen, right?
It can't not.
Yeah. Yeah. So is there anything you need to learn that you are trying to learn currently that would make you better at fab work?
Honestly, I'm kind of moving away from fab work.
Right.
So,
and by fab work, I mean like even CNC stuff or CAD stuff.
Yeah, let's get into that.
Yeah.
So I'll pick up where I left off because we're almost there. So 2 years ago, I took all year off and put 2,000 hours of labor into this truck. It's a brand new truck. Everything about it's new. And I had these like handmade sheet metal fenders that rusted up. I never painted them, but there was some sheet metal forming on there. I had to shrink and stretch. And, but I wanted a really specific image that I just didn't have the time, patience, or ability to. So I 3D scanned the truck and then I 3D modeled the fender that I wanted. It's super cool, swoopy, like pre-runner style fender. Yeah. And then I sent that model to my friend in Thailand and he 3D printed a full-size fender.
Okay.
Body worked it, made a fiberglass mold, and then pulled fiberglass parts out of it, shipped it halfway around the world, and I put them on. It's dope.
That's pretty cool.
So I'm more like my skills that I'm developing are more related to like engineering and modeling, which is not foreign to what I've been doing my whole life.
Right.
But
we're using more technology to help do it.
Right. So, so that was like kind of the end of my labor-based business. You know, Vague Industries took that year off, rebuilt and then the next year, which was last year in the spring, I shut everything down, sold everything, got rid of literally everything.
Wow.
I kept a couple of cool cars.
Yeah.
That's it. And then all year I just went homeless and I roamed around the country all year. Yeah. Spent a few months out in the desert.
Yep.
Experienced what heat waves in the middle of summer are like. Kind of, you know, it was a midlife crisis, really. You know.
Yeah.
You're
not old enough for a midlife crisis.
I'm middle-aged. I'm 38, dog. That's
38.
Right in the middle.
No, you have to be 40 plus is midlife.
Nope. It's not 38.
You can't take this from me.
You're old as fuck. 38.
I'm past midlife.
76, dog. That's all you get on average.
So 38 is smack dab in the middle.
There you go. So,
I haven't had a midlife crisis yet.
Yeah.
Does that mean my whole life is crisis?
You're doing it right now. You are. You're doing it.
I'm living my midlife crisis as we speak.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I split up with my girl. I got rid of my business. I was just.
Well, that's kind of like.
And then I got robbed. I lost everything. It was what a mess.
Well, that's kind of like a sabbatical where you take time off from life, meditate.
Yeah.
Get away from all technology, reset. Right.
That's what it. So yeah. So I got rid of everything. My folks lived in Florida. So what little stuff I had, I dragged down to Florida and I stayed with them for 3 weeks. Yeah. And I was just crawling in my skin.
Stir crazy.
I was like, I got to get out of here.
Yeah.
And I called my buddy Johnny and I was like, what are you doing? I'm coming over.
Yeah.
And he's in SoCal and he's got a private auto museum, a couple of them spread around SoCal. I'll just go down there and I'll maintain your shit. And I'll work on cars. And he's got this ranch right next to where Johnson Valley, like where King of the Hammers is. And I just lived in the desert with there was no society, no culture, there's nothing but rattlesnakes and scorpions and a bunch of desert hot rods that were up. I made him throw everything away and sell everything. I cleaned up his whole yard. I was like, this is for me, not for you. I need something to engage my mind.
Right.
And I just Yeah, so like meditation and like finding myself and figuring out what the future chapter looks like for me.
Right. And I think once you've done so much, and I don't want to say I'm at the point where I'm going to live in a desert for a year, but once you've done like as much stuff as we've done, like for instance, I've had some really great workplaces that I worked for, but there's really nothing above that.
Right.
Like, so where do I go? You don't go backwards, right? You almost have to create your own thing.
Right.
And that's part of this. But because of this network, I'm also spreading my consulting stuff. And because I have a lot of knowledge that other places that are smaller can use, but maybe they can't afford me full time. So if I send them or sell them part of my time, part of my work week, I think it helps them out. It gives me some kind of purpose of some sort. And, then I don't have to, live the mundane life like we talk about, the horrible employee life, which I know I would be.
It's, so you go out there and you're trying to figure out, like, it's not even what do you want to do when you grow up, it's who do you want to be. And it's like, well, if you define who you want to be and then engineer life backwards from there, reverse engineer it, it's like, well, what environments do you need to subject yourself to in order to have the highest probable outcome of becoming the type of person you want to be? In the same way, it's like, if you're going to raise a child, and what attributes do you want that thing to have? Do you want it to be, have perseverance, problem solving skills, social skills? Do you want it to manage bullying well? So, okay, if that's the case, what environment do you have to put that kid in for it to learn how to deal with bullies? You have to give them a bully.
You have to.
You have to. So in the same way, if you're going to, be the architect of your life, you have to figure out who you want to be and what environments you have to put yourself in. Right. So it's not even necessarily figuring out, how am I going to make money? Because like money happens as long as you're not.
You could make money as long as you,
happens.
if you're doing something actively for somebody else, whether it's consulting, whether you're selling labor.
Doesn't matter what it is. As long as you're not doing nothing, you'll make money. As
long as you're not doing nothing, there's money out there. You could take a job at Chick-fil-A and actually do pretty good, or Buc-ee's, and actually you could be a responsible adult person having a job at any of those places because they pay actually fairly well, I think, nowadays.
Yeah, money's not a problem. It's part of the equation, but it's not a problem. Like, money happens. So it's like, what do you want to? Okay, so this was a fun chain of thought. If everybody has a threshold, and the threshold is different for everyone, where once you start earning a certain amount of money, more money doesn't make you more happy. At least not proportionately. You start reaching diminishing returns. So when you hit that point, you suddenly realize, well, money is not the thing. It's like, shit, well, what is the thing? The thing is the thing. And if money's a byproduct of the thing, it feeds back into the thing, allows you to think harder, but you have to know what the thing. And so then you do the thought exercise. It's like, well, if tomorrow and for the rest of your life, every day you wake up, you're not allowed to think about money. Not like, how would you spend your time? Not how would you spend unlimited money, but how would you spend the limited time?
How would you spend your time if you didn't have to make money?
Right, exactly. So pretty quickly, initially you're going to have a handful of ego-driven pursuits, but very quickly you're going to recognize that nothing's worth anything unless it's with the people who matter most. So now, sociopathically, you have to hierarchically prioritize the people in your life, and then proportionately distribute your life energy to them, because now your measurement of success is your ability to adapt your goals to meet others. Problem here, most people on your list haven't reached that threshold to realize money's not the thing. They're in some level of survival mode. So when you're like, how can I help you achieve your goals? They're still trying to make money. So if you create a system that produces money, because your thing makes money, it's like, well, now why don't we adapt our goals? I can help you make some money, I get your goals, but we get to do it together. So it's all about community. Who do you want to be with? Who do you want to become? And how do you adapt? How do you take all of those goals and put it in one direction?
And a lot of people, lifestyle is kind of subjective to what your environment is, who you are. Because if you dumb it down really, really far, you could probably live. People do this in other countries. People live on less than $10,000 a year. People live on less than $5,000 in other countries of the world. In the U.S., your expenses are your living expenses and your bills. the surplus is not what you require to live off of, right? And I met somebody that was probably a little desensitized to the normal American. I met a celebrity who I think assumes that everybody has one car, right? Like, and I think that's normal. I think most people have just one normal car. And I was telling him about my Jeep plan of LS swapping it. He's like, well, what will you drive when your Jeep's not running? Like, assuming I had like one car. I'm like, well, I'll drive one of my other cars. And he looked at me like I was crazy. And I'm like, I know you have like 18 cars.
Yeah.
So why is it so unheard of for me to have more than one?
Yeah.
And I think at the time I had like 7.
Right.
Like, and of course they're not like Mercedes or AMG. They're just normal everyday cars that our people like, right?
Yeah.
And it made me think, and I think about this almost every day, because I'm like, why did he just assume that? Because he has experienced that all of his helpers only had one car. So he just assumed everybody that wasn't a celebrity had one car. Yeah. And I thought that was just the wildest assumption to make.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we were financially responsible, we'd probably only have one car.
Yeah, exactly. If we were real adults, we would only have one. I don't know who that is.
He's a media guy.
Oh, that's fine. I might share some of this media with him then. So, man, I just lost my train of thought.
I was talking about figuring out who you want to be when you grow up.
Yeah, you can continue there if you're still going. I'm sorry, I interrupted a lot.
That's how conversations work.
Yeah.
So I went out there and I started finding direction, figuring out, sort of what I wanted to do. And I've still got some goals that got sidelined because of this opportunity. Yeah.
So do you want to talk about what you're doing in Tennessee?
Yeah, so that's where I'm getting.
We probably should.
Probably should.
We're here
Why
right
am I
now.
in this office?
We're not in the desert.
Yeah, I started to straighten some things out and gain some clarity. I've got a bunch of things happening behind the curtain. But I went back to Florida, and I've been riding my BMX bike every day. I'm going to the gym. I'm making money here and there. Because like you said, it depends on what you require to maintain your minimum lifestyle. And I don't care about stuff. I don't care about money. I got rid of all my stuff when I left because I don't want this. I don't, most of this was just tools to allow me to do things that I don't even want to do anymore. I don't care about signaling, or I don't care if somebody thinks that I've got a lot of money or I don't, or if I don't care. I'm very comfortable with who I am. So the upside of that is I don't require a lot.
Yeah, you're low maintenance.
Right. So the money just keeps stacking in the account. It's I have nothing to spend it on because I don't want anything. But I was at a point not long ago when I was like, okay, well, the money's not stacking in right now. And I'm used to having a decent nest egg. Right. I didn't. I got robbed. And I was like, I need to make some money. How am I going to make some money? Like real money, not I'm going to eat this month. I want some money. I was like, well, the only way you get money is by solving someone's problem. So what kind of problems do I want to solve? What's my market? Do I want to solve poor people problems? I don't feel like they pay well. Yeah. I was like, do I want to solve rich people problems? That sounds better. Yeah. I'm like, okay, do I know anybody who's doing well in life and has a lot of problems? I was like, Tom has a lot of problems.
So this episode's coming out after his.
Good. Awesome. So I called Tom up and I was like, hey, you're a guy who's got a lot of problems. And he was like, you're telling me. I was like, well, I'd like to solve some of those. And we had a half-hour conversation. And we didn't come up with a plan at all. Right. But the general consensus of the conversation was it ended with okay, well, just get up here and we'll figure it out. It's if you and I are together, we can't not make money. Right. Bet. So then I moved to Tennessee. Yeah. And then I showed up unannounced. I'm like, hey, I'm here. He goes, oh, you're here. Okay. Well,
you really are here.
Yeah. I'm like, I live here. I moved in. Yeah. Not just passing by. So what we've teamed up to do is really build his brand, because I've got a lot of knowledge, a lot of resources that he doesn't have. And in a similar way that you do a lot of consulting, it's because you've earned the knowledge that you have over a lifetime of doing what you. Same to me. And I've just taken Tom as like a consistent client. We're partnered to build his brand and product and solve industry problems.
Yeah.
So we've got a handful of products coming down the chute right now, like billet breathers and some really
did
cool
you draw
catch
that? No, that's pretty cool. I saw that. Was it yesterday or today?
Yeah.
Yesterday.
Yeah,
I don't
yesterday.
remember. My days all run together. When you're unemployed,
every day's the same day.
Every day's the same day. It doesn't matter.
Don't worry, when you work for Tom, every day is the same day. We always work.
Yes.
But yeah, I've modeled some really cool stuff, and we've got a lot of really cool products coming out, and stuff that I'm excited about because we're not just making another wheel. Like,
right, you're having solutions for real problems.
Right, and sure, other people offer solutions for those problems too. I'm not trying to just copy whatever they're doing. Like, I genuinely believe the stuff that we're making is better than almost everything out there. Like, it's top of market stuff.
And with the real world experience you have and being able to draw that stuff, you can do it, and you have experience with it. So you know, hey, this is fixing this problem. This problem exists. This part now exists to fix this problem, whatever that is.
Right. And the catch cans that we're getting ready to come out with next month.
I haven't even seen the catch can stuff.
Yeah,
I'll have to get
nobody's seen them yet.
Maybe I'll get a privy behind the scenes. I won't take any video.
Yeah.
I see a lot of stuff that people are working on, and then actually at Tick I had to delete some footage because it was just too early to tell the world what they were working on. It'll be kind of neat. Stuff. Yeah, he's always doing cool stuff.
Fortunate to have earned a pretty good relationship with all those guys over the years. We've been working with them for a long time.
And I didn't realize this. I met Jonathan probably 13, 14, 15, whatever years ago. Yeah. And we just kind of been, in parallel doing pretty similar stuff with Jonathan and Matt, just in different states. So it's kind of neat to see, their version of stuff. It's pretty similar to what I would try to do. So, and they
bunch of really bright guys.
Yes. But like their story though, if you just went off of what their story was up until they started doing that stuff, their story could have went a million different ways because the stuff they're doing is what well-educated and trained people are doing, but they don't have that. Right. But they have the sweat equity in their own company that tells them, hey, we're racers. This is the way it needs to be. This is a weakness. We're going to beef this up. We're going to make this. And it works because they're real enthusiasts.
And I think that's similar to the trajectory that I'm on right now. As a partner with Tom. It's like I come with a lifetime of experience. And it's not just an engineering degree with no real world experience.
Right.
But like our catch cans it's not just a catch can.
Right.
It's solving problems that basically no other catch can solve. There is one other catch can currently on the market that is, solves similar problems, but they do it in a different way. And again, I believe ours is better. But we created a custom valve. We created tooling and molded some custom rubber valves that allow you to, the valve, when you're creating excessive crank pressure and it's filling the can, the valve opens and allows it to breathe through the filter, just like any other catch can. But when you're not doing that, the valve closes, it pulls a vacuum, and so you don't have the oil smell, and it recircs just like a regular old, factory PCV.
Kind of like a PCV, yeah.
Yeah, it is a PCV.
Okay.
So you don't end up with that oil smell all the time.
Yeah.
It's just a much cleaner, more well-contained system.
Pretty neat.
It is really neat.
And without ever experiencing a normal catch can, you probably wouldn't know, hey, there's a problem here.
Exactly. Somebody says, okay, you make a bunch of extra horsepower, you're going to have extra crankcase pressure, you have to catch it and get a catch can. So you get a catch can, you're like, I did my job. But then now all of a sudden it's like you got oil mist everywhere and it smells, and you want this nice. A lot of people spend a lot of money to make their car really nice.
A lot.
And now they're sitting at the stoplight and it smells like oil.
It's very expensive to build a race car. It's very expensive to build a fast street car. To the tune of like me, I get deals on a lot of stuff, and I'm probably 30 grand deep in my 5th gen, and that sounds like a lot, But it's really not if you think about there's people with 300 grand in their cars.
Totally. Take a walk through the shop.
Yeah.
You know?
and it's just wild. People think we're doing this stuff and we're able to make cars fast without spending money, but that's not really the case.
That's how that works.
You have to spend money on the right things for one.
Yeah.
And it does cost money to make fast car faster.
Yeah. Yeah. So things like that, you know, like our breathers, we just came up with these universal breathers. You know, there's cool little features, like there's an O-ring, but the O-ring isn't just a regular straight square cut milled groove. We use dovetail grooves, so when you pop the O-ring in, it doesn't fall out. Like it's in there for good.
Yeah.
So you can't lose the O-ring. It's got 2 baffles in it, one internal baffle, one under it. So you're scraping the oil vapor from the air, so that less oil even makes it to the catch can.
Right. How do you learn how to do the CAD stuff?
A lifetime of fiddling. But so for, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years, I only knew how to do 2D stuff.
Right.
And when I started with Vague Industries, I eventually got to a point where I built my own CNC tube cutter, and I was manufacturing our own chassis. But leading up to that, I needed to model all the chassis we were building in 3D. And it turned into a friend, but I had a customer drop by that had a first gen Mustang with a 1,000 horse 4G63 in it, a 4-cylinder.
Okay.
Mitsubishi engine. It was cool. Yeah. And he wanted me to take his down tube, create like an inverted collector. He wanted zoomies on one side, just for laughs.
Okay.
And so then I learned that he was the SolidWorks teacher at the local community college. And when he was like, how much do I owe you? I've got a problem I need. And he kept having me do work, and I wouldn't let him pay me. And he was mad. He's like, I don't have time, man. I just want to pay you. He's like, how much do you want? I'm like, you have to teach me.
Yeah.
And so I strong-armed him into teaching me how to. And what I learned through that was I tried tutorials and stuff, but I just didn't click for me. But having somebody hold my hand and this button, that button, it got me over the threshold. And once I got over the threshold, I learned that, you know, these modeling programs, even though they're English words, it's a different language.
Yeah, it is. I have a story where my son made me look like an idiot because I wanted something designed, and he told me to download the software and just draw it. Yeah, 6 hours later, there was nothing on the screen. Yeah, so CAD is basically 3-dimensional software, and you're drawing kind of like a 3D map of some kind of component.
Yeah, a digital representation, what is intended to be in the real world. So like, what, you know, I can't even Google search because I don't know the right terms.
Right.
I'm trying to draw a chassis, so I'm like, well, how do I bend a tube, or how do I notch a tube? How do I cope it? And those aren't the words you use. You know, it's like trim, extend, entity, cut perpendicular.
But you're doing fab work, doing the same work analog, basically, and you're trying to draw in digital, which you could do the hard part right already. Yeah. But to design something new in CAD, you have to kind of visualize it and draw it, which you're doing with your hands alternatively.
Yeah.
But to make more than one part, you have to CAD it.
Yeah. So there was a threshold that I had to overcome in order to realize that it was a different language. And the reason why I wasn't able to figure it out on my own is because I was using the wrong words. I had the wrong keywords to even search.
Okay.
But once I got past that, then I was able to self-teach. So I'm still to this day, since I've been up in Tennessee, I've been doing some projects. I've done a bunch of things that is the first time I've ever done it before. I can draw most anything. There are certain types of things that I don't have a lot of experience with, but like I'll draw a whole chassis. I'll draw my own control arms, all the parts that need to be machined and cut and bent. I can draw shocks and put the seat in it and the engine in it and make sure everything works. Draw a whole car, but I can't draw a body part, like the organic shapes.
Yeah.
So I'm just not good with surface modeling. And I came up here to start helping Tom build brand and start manufacturing parts. And he was like, hey, while you're here, I want you to work on my race car too.
Yeah.
I'm like, sure, I'll do that. And there was things that I had to do to the race car that I've never done it before. I don't know how to do it. I will figure it out. But it was like I built a dashboard Because his car, it's like a 2,500 horse stick shift S2000.
Right.
And he wants to run it in the street class. But they look at it like that's not a street car.
Right.
So we took the one-piece nose off. We put fenders, hood, and bumper, and put headlights in it. And I built a dashboard. We put a radio in it, power windows. It's like, fuck you, that's a street car.
Yeah, it's a street car now.
Yeah, prove it. Like, fight me.
Yep.
But he was like, just put the dash in it. And I grabbed the old floppy dash pad that was left, and it was enormous and terrible and like didn't fit. And I was like, I really don't want to put this in. He goes, well, what do you want to do? I was like, I want to build a new one. And so I bought a 3D scanner and I scanned the interior of the car, which I've never used a scanner before. That was the first thing I ever scanned. And then from that, I modeled a new dashboard with a bunch of organic shape that I've never done before. Right. And then I bought a 3D printer, which I've never used before. And I started 3D printing the dash.
Right.
I glued it all together and it all happened to fit. I was like, cool.
Wow.
But then I learned that because of, how do I word that? There's stress risers between each layer of print. It cools at different rates. So there's going to be some inherent stress built into the material that after a few heat cycles, it's because it was a big low crown shape, it's probably going to warp. So then I wrapped the whole thing in carbon fiber, which I've never done before. Right. And so it's like I've been doing a lot of things that I've never done before and having like reasonable success with it. So that feels good.
That's pretty neat. That's something... And it probably gives you more drive because you're learning something now, right? It's challenging.
Yeah, and I just came across a quote recently that said, frustration is the process of learning, or something like that. It's like, so if you're frustrated, it's because you're learning something.
Right. Because, I think...
Frustration is the gap between unknown and known.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Because I think we've all been to the point where, the first time you replace a starter, man, F this starter, this sucks. Yeah. But the second time,
it's like not that bad.
Not that bad.
Yeah.
And then like the sixth time you do the same starter.
Now it's just annoying.
Now it's just annoying, yeah. but as far as the work, it's you don't have to think about it, right? So
that addresses the question that you had early in this conversation.
Yeah.
Like, what are you working on to try to continue developing your skills?
Yeah.
It's things like that. And some of these products that I'm designing, I'm still learning a lot of things because I've modeled a lot of stuff, but most of the stuff I've modeled has been to be manufactured by tools that I currently have in my shop, which is like a plasma table and a press brake and a lot of sheet metal stuff and tube stuff,
right?
And not a lot of machine stuff. So even though I can make the part, I'm like, am I making it in a way that it's manufacturable on a machine? It's like I don't own the machine, I'm like, I'm hiring somebody to make this for me right now until we get our own machines.
Right. So like the CNC machines.
Yeah, stuff. CNC milling and stuff.
Oh, so I know a few people if you need some third-party manufacturing done.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's like they're gonna, as long as they're holding quality standards that you spec.
Well, there are machinists out there that don't want to do retail. They only want to make stuff.
They just want to make stuff.
They just want to be behind the scenes, sell to you, business to business. They never want to do consumer selling.
Right. Because there's a lot to it. That's like, you got to dive deep into psychology to make sales happen.
Well, yeah. And just think about like the sales tax alone. I don't want to deal with that. If I was a machinist, I'm just going to sell it to you. You deal with the sales tax and the government.
In the end of the day, it's like, if you're going to build this machine, business, and you're going to have all of these different arms and legs, and you're not going to be the best at every single thing, which is why you're hiring. To scale, you need to hire other people. And if you're going to hire somebody to do the job, you want to hire the best person you can find to do that job. And the best person might be the guy who's been doing it his whole life and has a bunch of machines at his shop. Like, hire that guy. He's really good at it.
Exactly.
And we're all just trying to adapt our goals to meet others so that we can, achieve mutual goals. So whether they're in-house or they're contracted, whether they're on a W-2 or a 1099, it doesn't matter. We're all working together to try to do the same thing.
Yeah, the same final product at the end of the day. Yeah, that's pretty neat. And I had no idea up until yesterday that this stuff was going on in the background.
Yeah, I've been busting my ass.
Yeah, I knew Thomas was doing the performance shop, but I was not aware of like to what extent. I know a lot of people, so performance shop could be one man in his garage at home, all the way to 100,000 square foot building,
Right.
performance shop.
Yep.
And there's just a wide variety through the middle. So making solutions for racers is pretty cool. I like that.
And I came here and like I still do some service work and labor and stuff. Like we're putting dually on airbags back there and a bunch of cool stuff.
Well, it's stuff kind of relevant. It's not like stuff you're uncomfortable with. It's stuff in your wheelhouse, right?
Yeah,
you're probably not even thinking.
Bread and butter. I don't even think about it. Just do it. But that's honestly just sort of a stepping stone to where we're going. Because ultimately, that's not what I'm here to bring product to market, and where my skills are really is in so that is the front end of the machine shop. Who doesn't want to? That's what we're doing. We're shooting for the moon.
And I think there's going to be stuff relevant. Like you might be in the shop, and the marketing guy may have a question, or the media guy, and you have a lot of experience in that too. So it definitely helps by having somebody under the same roof that has already kind of done a lot of that stuff to begin with. So what's next for your kind of media empire?
Glad you asked. Actually, I don't care if you asked or not. But I've been working on gearing something up for the last couple of months now. And also part of why I'm here, because this is the location to do it at.
Okay.
But I have put together a sustainable, scalable content creation structure. And honestly, it's kind of like the old Hoonigan mold.
Yeah.
So we've got a videographer, we've got some marketing partners already. So we're just getting ready to launch, but I need a complete system before we go. Not going to be a lot of Deathwish stuff. Well, there will be some of that.
Right.
Primarily going to be doing a lot of like build breakdowns. Almost like it's a podcast with a car. We got a lot of cool cars in here.
Oh yeah.
So we're gonna do a podcast on a car, and that's something that, as far as sustainable content creation, that I don't need to do a build series, right? If I'm gonna build a car, I got $150,000 worth of value in this car that I'm gonna present to the viewer, or my customer has $150,000 worth of value that he'd love to present to the viewer, and he can do it through me.
Yeah.
And I can do that. I can set up a film day on a Saturday. We can film 4 of them, and we can put out 4 a week.
Yeah, and the customer's going to love that, because now he has documentation.
Right, and that's how you build brand
of stuff.
And
that'll be neat. And I always said that that's the perfect kind of endless supply of customers would be any shop. Just video what you're doing for one, but also maybe even interview the customer at the beginning and maybe the end.
That's the whole thing. It's like you have to do emotional storytelling.
Yeah, emotional storytelling. Yeah. There's so much more we could talk about. I'm afraid my battery life is going to die at some point, but I do want to.
We could just cut the first part of this out, and this is where it's getting good.
Well, we'll revisit, of course, because there's like the birthday lawnmower races we could talk about. There's
best birthday of my life.
Yeah. But I think we'll save that for next time, because I think that's a story in itself almost.
There'll be more.
Yeah, there'll be more. And then we could do an update of your media empire. But I want to ask you something that I think you might have suggestions for me.
Okay.
How would you change this format of a podcast? Would you keep doing it the way I'm doing it? Would you reach out to other people that maybe I don't have in my network? Like, do you have any suggestions for something to make a podcast better that
that's interesting.
Might be set me apart from other places?
Okay. So like I said earlier, most of my friends are content creators, influencers of some kind. I'm aware of them, but I've never watched your thing.
Yeah.
I've watched a few minutes of a couple of them here or there. So
it's the same for me. I don't make it a practice unless I see somebody that I am a friend with, or I was the guy that built the engine. Right. So I'm very limited on what I watch.
One thing that I see, and I don't know if you do it or not, would be another camera. You have 2, but they're both the same angle.
Yeah. I use that because sometimes I zoom in on the person that's the guest from one of them, and I like the different angles. I do want to get another DJI though and cross them.
That's what I was talking
about.
Do a cross. Okay. That way there you can should be probably 3.
Yeah. So just add another one of those, and then that one could be my wide angle.
You can cross them. You can get a shot, and then
but I could make 4 angles from these.
Yeah.
I just didn't angle them today just because of this office. But that's kind of along what I was thinking already.
Yeah, I think that would help a lot. I think that the content subject, I don't think you need to go outside of your network.
Right.
Because your network is also going to bring you outside of your network. They're going to say, I got a guy. You got
right.
Your network's big enough to get your foundation and your base. And you have earned a reputation in the industry to go through doors that most people haven't, even doors you've never been through. So I don't think that needs to be a concern. Because you're a guy right now that's like, if you stumble across somebody like, oh, he'd be cool, you can probably get yourself in there.
Yeah.
But I think what you're doing and the organic way of doing it is great. I think getting rid of, like you said, you had like a little check sheet. Like, good thing you got rid of that. Whatever.
Well, I needed just almost like a crutch in a way. And, I had it kind of scripted. I wanted to say something at the beginning, but I realized I could say that in an intro on my own time at a hotel somewhere. And I do that already, just a quick little blurb. The thing I haven't done is I haven't made fancy thumbnails yet for the YouTube stuff. And I know that's a big part. Yeah.
So the couple things. I'm sure you've noticed most podcasts, the first 30, 40 minutes are kind of stiff.
Oh, yeah.
But there's ways to crack through that. It's like emotional storytelling tactics that you can efficiently extract emotional stories. So kind of questions like, what was driving you to do that? What did it, because that dives into like the root of the story, which is probably more important than the story. And now all of a sudden they're making a real connection with you from something deeper, and you can break through that awkwardness sooner.
Yeah.
And
awkwardness usually doesn't last very long. It's probably on most of mine, I would say it's an easy 2 to 5 minutes.
Well, sure.
But it's there because
it's there, but I can.
Sometimes people are nervous. Like, you're not nervous behind a camera, but you could tell when people don't want to be on a camera. And I don't even think it's even there. Like, I'm just talking to you, right?
And I'm not going to fully disagree with that.
Yeah.
But I don't fully agree.
Yeah.
Because even our conversation, you and I are actual friends. We're both comfortable on camera. But I think there was a good half hour where it was still like, we're in presentation mode. and that's not what people want. People want
people want the real conversation. Yeah.
So whatever you can do to get out of presentation mode.
Get out of presentation mode quicker.
Go from presentation to conversation as quickly as possible. Because that's when the conversation gets engaging. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. It's like, even like I'm trying to build... people don't know who you are, right? If they have never seen you. So like giving your history of like, hey, what got you into cars? To me, that's a relevant thing. And like some of the training and stuff. And I want to mentor the next generation too, in a way. So like, this is a little bit of education. So somebody could say, hey, I saw Josh on a TV show. I saw Potek at a race or something. What did it take for those guys to get to where they're at? And I think that to the next generation, because a lot of these people don't really have heroes in a way. They just kind of, they're latchkey kids or whatever, and then they grow up and they have no idea that cars are even a thing. People don't get their licenses till later. So
I wonder if like on the what did it take to get you to where you're at is like, I wonder if there's a timing thing to that question, because if you're still
Thank you for tuning in to the High Performance Cult podcast. A huge thanks to our guests for welcoming us into their world and sharing their insights. I also want to express my gratitude to my colleagues who helped make this show possible. For more from High Performance Cult, join our growing community at hpcult.com. Our network is a vibrant hub for media and forums, connecting enthusiasts like you with peers who share your passion. Share your vehicles, projects, and experiences, and stay updated with upcoming articles and media. If you're new here and enjoyed the podcasts, please like, subscribe, and share. We can't wait to see you next time on the High Performance Cult podcast.